So when you try to think of coping crutches or a way to cope with your anxiety, one of the biggest things that come up are what we call breathing techniques. This idea that if you change your breathing, your anxiety goes away. At least that's the idea behind them. But if you're struggling with these debilitating physical symptoms, if you're experiencing these intrusive thoughts, if you're experiencing nonstop panic attacks, you learn pretty quickly that breathing techniques don't really work. In this video, I want to talk to you about really the truth behind breathing techniques, and even though breathing techniques may or may not have their place, there's actually a much better, easier, and long-lasting solution that actually makes all this go away. So pay attention, and I'll explain that by the end of this video. So let's get started. So I remember when I experienced my first panic attack, I ended up experiencing more panic attacks after that, followed by chronic anxiety 24/7. And I remember I spoke with this therapist because I'd went to doctors so many times. They were like, look, there's nothing wrong. Maybe you want to go talk to somebody about this. I remember speaking to a therapist and I rambled for like an hour explaining about these physical symptoms and how I couldn't sleep and I was experiencing these panic attacks and these thoughts were really scaring me. And she just kind of looked at me for like an hour and by the end was like, have you tried breathing techniques? And I was like, what? Like, this isn't an issue with my breathing. Like, this is like, breathing is not going to get me out of this. There's just something seriously wrong. And bless her heart, she was great. But I think what happened is that there was a misunderstanding. See, when we talk about anxiety, there's really two types of anxiety. There is like the anxiety, like me making this video. Like right before the cameraman said action, I was a little bit nervous, but I still did the video. There's that type of anxiety, and then there's the anxiety that you're feeling. The feeling where the feelings of anxiety is what's keeping it alive. What I mean by that is it's the physical symptoms that's actually caused by anxiety that's creating more anxiety. So your heart palpitations feel like it's an onset of a heart attack. Your breathlessness is part of a breathing issue. And so you start thinking the worst case scenarios. And so what happens is that with these individuals, the second type, the people like you and me who were struggling with debilitating anxiety, breathing techniques, believe it or not, won't really work. And the truth is that breathing techniques are not a shield from you not experiencing anxiety. The truth is that when you guys are struggling with anxiety, when you're struggling with anxiety, you're using breathing techniques as a way to escape. It's a tool to stop feeling what you're feeling. But that's not the intention of breathing techniques. The idea of breathing techniques, it's to help you cope. Right before I film this video, it helps me before filming this video. But once this video ends, the anxiety goes away. But that's not the case for you. You experience anxiety 24/7, or you may have high moments periodically throughout the day. And so breathing techniques, you'll just take it too far. The truth is that there's a much easier way. And that's what we focus on, is overcoming the anxiety. See, if anxiety is gone, if you're no longer experiencing these physical symptoms, these intrusive thoughts, these feelings of unreality, or these emotions, well, there's nothing to cope because there's no problem. And so if you can focus on long-term freedom, which is overcoming, you won't even have to rely on breathing techniques. Now, if you really want to know well, okay, Shaan, how do I overcome this? Well, in order to overcome this, it's not such a simple answer. You kind of need to understand the mechanics of anxiety. You need to understand what's really happening to you physiologically. And so if you want to know, I'll put a link down below. This is a link to my free report. Essentially, I've written out step by step on not only what's happening, but how to get out of this. This is the exact same steps that I use in my own personal mentorship program where I'm guiding people out of this. These are the exact same steps. There's no hidden steps. All 5 points, these are all the steps that I use. And I've given this to you for free because, look, I know how debilitating, how scary this can be. I was in your shoes as well. If somebody would have just explained to me a little bit more about what was happening, that would have mitigated a lot of unnecessary suffering and would have actually helped me recover faster. So I'm putting this out for you because, I can't work with everybody, But that doesn't mean just because I don't work with you, you don't recover. This is absolutely for you. It's free. I can't wait for you guys to read it. Now, the last point I want to make is that it's not exclusive to breathing techniques. A lot of people struggling with anxiety are trying to find any sort of technique to get out of this. So they may try breathing techniques. They may try yoga, meditation, everything they can to try to escape from the anxiety. But if you could just focus on a few principles, if you can understand a little bit more about what's happening and really focus on the principles, you don't really need to rely on a technique. You don't need to rely on some sort of crutch. The focus is that if you just do a few things right and focus on what I call long-term freedom, you don't have to rely on any of these things. Now, that doesn't mean that none of these things aren't good. These things are great. They're good for health. They're good for other avenues. They may be good for stress relief, but when it comes to overcoming anxiety, when people are really struggling, they just take it too far. They try to use it as a way to escape. And the idea is not to escape it. The idea is to allow it to be there and keep moving forward. These things just help in the middle of the anxiety. And if they do help, it's marginal. Again, if you focus on long-term freedom, all this ends up going away. Now, if you really want to know more, if you really want to know, okay, how do I get out of this? Or you constantly are watching these videos and you're trying to figure this out on your own, well, why don't you go ahead and just work with me directly, and I can just take you by the hand and just take you to recovery myself. This isn't just some theory I've read in a book that luckily worked for me. We field test this with everybody. We want to make sure that if I'm working with somebody, the idea is full recovery. So if you're tired of trying to figure it out, going on these forums, Google searching, watching these videos, trying to understand and apply it, not sure if you're doing it right, well, and if you just want to recover even faster, just go back to living and forget about this and have this as being a chapter closed, then hit the link below, apply for a mentorship. Now look, I can't work with everybody, and we are pretty hard on who we screen. We want to make sure that the people we're working with are fully committed to fully overcoming. So if that's you, hit a link below, fill out an application, and if you're a good fit, we will have a call with you to really see what your biggest goals are, where your biggest struggles are, and more importantly, a strategy for you to how to get out of this. So if that's you, hit the link down below. I'll see you guys inside.